good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where we're at internationally. My name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine. This is TMS RoundTable. We have been streaming live here, going on 7 years this March, and each week we meet incredible guests like my guest this evening, doctors, therapists, movie directors, neuroscientists, authors, and people that have healed and recovered or are on their recovery program from every symptom you can imagine, from cancer to MS to fibromyalgia to chronic fatigue. So I'm joined by Simone, which I love that name, Simone Holderbach, a chronic symptom recovery coach who helps people shift from their pain by retraining their brain. Simone is the founder of Eastside Bodywork and Pain Cure in Bellevue, Washington State, and the creator of the Mind-Body approach, where she supports clients through evidence-based treatments rooted in the latest neuroscientists. She's trained with some of the most respected names in pain science and recovery, our teachers, Dr. Howard Trubiner, Professor Laura Mosley, Charlie Merrill, Vanessa Blackstone, and many more. She's endlessly curious and quite unique and quite a pathfinder in this community, unapologetically nerdy
Totally.
about the nervous system and deeply committed to helping people retrain their brains, access their emotions, and recover fully, not through pressure, but through presence, safety, and reconnection with life. Wow. I'm so excited, Simone. I am so excited because I think when the coaches I meet and the health professionals kind of find their niche, something special, something that they feel passionate about, it not only does it help so many more people, but in a very different way. And you become so, it's so integral that certain people work with you because of what you're doing. I mean, we're offering something so specific to who we are. We are the person behind the treatment. So I think it's a relationship that, our clients have with us. And I think more important, what I want to say is that you chose this topic, and it's a bit of pathfinding. It's a bit like not the typical topic. When I first heard about play and
Yes.
joy in healing, it was from Dr. David Hanscom, who has a doc journey, direct your own care. And it was kind of unusual. What do you mean? Like, we're serious people. We gotta heal ourselves. And he's like, no. And I want to just quote, before I let you talk, I want to make one quote so I can present you so beautifully. Play is a physiological state that reflects a sense of safety. And this has been studied. And we're going to talk more about it. So, Simone, I'm going to zip her up and hold the space for you to speak about why you chose this, how you got into this field, and about the special program that you've created for my community, for our community, and for people to heal and recover.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation for months now, and thrilled to be here. And thank you for the kind introduction. Yeah, joy has become really important to me and an integral part of the way I coach clients, because in my work with chronic symptom sufferers, I've noticed that even as they get better, it's not does not come easy to them to reconnect with what used to light them up, what used to bring them joy. They have forgotten how to access that part of it. And I couldn't agree more than with the quote that you read, Doc Tovah. Play is an innate trait in us. Like, we're born with it. Just
Yeah.
think about how, as any babies, we learn through play. That's how we acquire all of our knowledge, our abilities. We create new neural pathways through play. And then when we turn into adults, we kind of lose that a little bit. And of course, when chronic symptoms come into play, that takes a, like a back seat for some time, and very understandably so.
Yeah.
So I'm determined to bring it to the forefront and reintroduce it to people, because it is a health intervention. It's not a nice to have. It's really an important ingredient and catalyst on the way to recovery.
Yeah. Well, Simone, all of us have it in us. We have that part, from the IFS work, we have that part and it's big. And we're all very funny and very, comical and very playful. I mean, that's kind of how we got here. Like I always say, we're smart and sensitive people, us neuroplasticers or TMSers. And I, I think our community is very, very full of joy and play and hope and belief. But the play and the joy is very specific because we're serious. We're like we're fearful, we're sad, we're angry. And so it's not the opposite. Talk a little bit about the emotions that come with play and joy.
Yeah, I wanna just touch a little bit on what you just said. I think, yes, we have it all in us, but I think most people who are in this work, have been deeply touched by chronic symptoms in one way or another. And most people are very familiar how much joy and playfulness and lightness and ease can fall through the cracks, and how they can feel very inaccessible for long stretches of time. So much so that it seems trivial and like absurd almost to even think about it when you're
Yeah,
in such misery, right?
good point.
So even though it's in us, that is kind of like what we hold on to. That's like a truth. Um, it is not always that easy to access it.
So, how can we help people tap into that pathway
Yes.
that needs to be hopeful, playful, and joyful? How do we do that?
Well, first, I think it's important to understand that a lot of chronic symptoms are driven by the fear response, right? We experience a symptom, the automatic reflex and the natural response is fear. And fear and joy are actually opposites. So when the fear is high, it's joy is inaccessible. But as we work on lowering the fear, joy can come in, and the more we increase joy, the lower the fear gets, and the more the response to the symptoms can change. Because that's kind of important to understand, that it's like a physiological, neurological antidote. Like the you can't be in the same state at the same time. So as you increase joy, you automatically decrease fear. So that's typically what we're after in neuroplastic
Yeah,
symptom recovery
yeah.
coaching, is work with the fear response, because that has been shown to be the most effective, one of the most effective approaches to reducing symptoms and recovering from pain and other chronic symptoms. But
So
how do we do it?
I'm
I
going to
think,
chime in because
yes,
it's
of course.
very big, and I've mentioned it on the page, and I don't know if you can maybe address this after you. I'm sorry to interrupt. My listeners
No,
get upset when I interrupt, but I get a little triggered, and I want to say
no,
something.
go for it.
But this is very important because it's a take home tool. Now I know Martha Stewart brought this she wrote a book about it, but it is true that when we're anxious or stressed or triggered, that once we turn that into creativity, like the answer, like the opposite thing is you can't be anxious and creative. So let's just let people know that they have choices. They can even be fearful. Like we're not saying stuff your fear or get rid of it, accept it. And in that way, the joy barometer will come up. The same thing with the anxiety and creativity. Can you
Yeah,
address that in a
exactly.
few minutes?
Exactly. It's important to understand that we are not, this is not about toxic positivity, right? Like saying that, oh, just don't worry about it, everything's hunky dory. That's not it at all, because the suffering is real, right? But we talk a lot about neuroplasticity in this realm. And so neuroplasticity simply means that we are adaptable. Our nervous system and brain can change, but it can change in different directions, and we can determine the input to a large extent by
Excellent.
our choices, our thoughts, our habits. our mindset. And that's where we kind of like start here is by realizing the power we hold, that it's not just symptom treatment, fixing, trying to find the next thing to try out. And that is such a stressful cycle, that
Yeah.
hope disappointment cycle. And of course, people will do that and try everything they can to get better, because getting healthy is the number one goal. But we're not saying don't do that, but add in this as an adjunct form of therapy. And this is a fun form of therapy because this is something that is, like this brings like feelings of just lightness and contentment and smiles. And so this doesn't feel like another heavy thing to do. And looping back to your question of how, the importance is to not take too big of a chunk at a time.
Good.
Um,
Excellent.
a lot of people with chronic symptoms are big black or white thinkers, right? It's all or nothing. And this is the opposite of what we want to do. We know that lightness coexists with the darkness. So the joy coexists with the suffering. And
I
that
love
is
it.
a given. But instead of choosing to look at the suffering and the symptoms and, constantly being like preoccupied about what to do next, what to try next, and creating that intensity and urgency behind it, we choose to look at the other part of the joy input into the neuroplasticity equation, and we choose to invest in here to make this part bigger, so this part can shrink a little bit, because it cannot coexist at the same time, right? And with repetition, um, we will strengthen this joy muscle, and
Beautiful.
it'll become much easier over time to access those little moments that at first seem like absurd or
Yeah.
trivial.
No, you make such very important points. We probably both have this experience with our clients, and I'm hearing it all the time, that when people are socializing or with community or distracted, their symptoms go away. And so our job is to say, okay, so when you're alone, you need to be able to recreate that experience with your nervous system because you felt safe there. You were able to bring calm and you were in the moment. And then when you're alone, you're ruminating, you're in the past, you're full of fear again. So it's almost like when we ask people to journal or to meditate or to dance or to sing or to hum or to go outside to find a pleasant sensation in their body. This is a key. When we're feeling pain, one of the best things that we learn from the Alan Gordon work and the pain processing therapy is to find a pleasant sensation because they do exist. And the focus is on your negative sensation. And we know about um, um, the network, oh,
Default mode network.
yeah, but the salient network,
Hmm.
salience, and how our brain chooses what's important. So now we're back to the joy and the creativity and the play. Is we're not saying to go out there and put on a clown outfit and play, with little kids and be at the playground, but there's a sense of self that could be more playful, that could be observing yourself, metacognition, observing your thoughts, watching your thoughts, loving compassion, so we're really, really, I love the play and joy, but we really, are talking so much about the belief, the hope, the love, the compassion, the safety. But you're saying, let's build a pathway of joy and play by doing maybe some things that we'll talk about, like in the course that you're going to be giving. But let's practice let it become a habit.
100%. That's what I'm so passionate about, right? I want to take it from this abstract concept of like a nice to have. Oh yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have more joy, right? But I can't because I'm like in this situation that I'm in. Later, when I'm better, I'm gonna, do it. I'm gonna engage in that. I look forward to it, but right now I can't think of it. I want to show that there is a pathway, that there is it is a habit and like a muscle. It's not a goal. It is an emotion. It's something that we can practice. And like that's what I'm passionate about. Like showing that microdoses of joy, like strategically practiced, will help you to access that more easily. And as you grow that capacity, your resilience will grow and it will support your recovery big time.
So give us some examples of how we can access that and begin to build that new neural pathway with joy
Yes.
and play.
So, like I said, for most people, it's kind of like a concept that they haven't thought about in a long time, because playfulness, that's something that we did as kids, right? And when I first, like, started studying about play and playfulness, I was like, yeah, I'm not the playful type. That's kind of what my initial thought was, because I don't like board
You're
games.
the nerdy type.
Yes, I am.
We love
Because
you.
I don't like board games, and I always thought like that's playing, right? Board games is playing. But I came across the work of Dr. Stuart Brown of the National Institute for Health, and he has created, he's done research on play and how it is evolutionarily important to our species. Um, and he has come up with 8 different play personalities. And so it's just people are different in how they play. So there are the people who like to compete, and be it in board games or in sports, for example, and that's their form of play. There is people who like to learn new things and explore new restaurants or new scenic routes. That's me. That's the explorer type. There are people who love to collect items. They're collectors. That brings them joy to, collect things over time, display it beautifully. There are people who love to organize events. They are directors. So there's 8 different personality types. And what I found, what helps people is like I've created a quiz for people with chronic symptoms that is a series of 10 short questions. And if you answer them, it gives you your play personality type. And it's kind of like describes how play comes naturally to you. And it's typically it's pretty accurate. So everybody who's taken it so far has said, yeah, that's true. That's me. And then we can start with finding a couple of joy experiments that go with that. And joy experiments is kind of like my thing. So every week, every Monday, we start a new joy quest. And that's one joy experiment that we practice for one entire week. Now, I didn't want to do something new every day because this is about habit change and habit building. So we chose one thing and then we practice it for one week. And then we try something new, right? And the what's to be expected is that at first the nervous system will be, I don't know what to think about that, because as you know, our brains like what's familiar. That's the pathways they choose. And when we've been living with chronic symptoms, oh, the pathways that go to symptom focus and just, like managing and coping and just getting by, those are the strong pathways. So when we introduce joy, it can feel foreign and awkward and like anxiety producing a little bit,
Yeah,
even in
yeah,
some people.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So we
Good
want to
point.
kind of, that's why I call it microdoses, because if we were to choose like something huge, like go out and explore your town for like a couple of hours and do this and do that, it would be way too big for the people I work with. So we start small and we build on that. And our first, Joy Quest last week, for example, was compliment a cloud. And I personally loved that one. When I created it, was like, okay, look up to the sky and look at the cloud formations. You know how we did it as kids
Yeah, yeah.
when oh, this cloud looks like that, this cloud looks like that, and just look for, like, just notice. This is about noticing. This is about present moment awareness in the
Yes. So
in the end, right?
you're building a very important muscle
Yes.
of awareness, being in the moment, because in the moment, breathing and watching your breath, we know you will not have any pain because you're focused on the breath. And you're talking about shifting of focus. You're really, you see, there's something deeper going on here, and play is a wonderful, hand to hold. And
Yes. That's just the kind of like this the surface, right? It's the entry point. But what we are after ultimately is present moment awareness, mindfulness, savoring, like just being in the present moment. Because our brain loves to worry about things in the past or in the future. We very rarely live in the present moment. And so play and these joy experiments are ways to give the brain something to do that zooms you into the present moment.
really so important. It's so very important. And I wanted to, and there's laughter yoga and there's things happening, in the Eastern world. And it's hard to just laugh for no reason. I mean, you kind of you want to be triggered in a positive way to laugh. So I think some of us feel like we're forcing something, or how's it going to become natural, or how can I lean into that? And maybe I just need to watch a funny movie once in a while, and that's all I need. Like let's see if we can help, the layman, the people out there, and in the listeners and in our community, to again tap into something that's already there. Like they have this pathway, this insight. They've and like you said, I think that we trip up on ourselves, we get in the way. And so how do we accept and honor our seriousness, our fortitude, our passion about getting better? How do we, like you said, how do we lighten up? How do we kind of lighten up?
That's that's the big question. It reminds me of, like when I used to work as a massage therapist over like a decade ago, and I had this big sign, still lives in my garage, that says relax. And like eventually I took it down because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like it says like relax.
Calm
It's
down.
like it shouts as you exactly calm down, lighten up. And that's not the way to do it. So I was like, I liked it when I bought it, but it kind of didn't really work there. Um, I think the first step is to understand um, that you are in this hamster wheel of being very focused on symptoms. That is kind of like the awareness is always the first step, right? Then having the knowledge that there are other things that you can try, like coming out of your head into your body, like the
Love
work
it.
we do with chronic symptom recovery. I mean, that is at the core, right? Because most people that I work with, at least, um, gosh, they live above the neck. They have very, little access to the rest of their body. And, once they find mind body medicine and neuroplastic treatments, they love the concept and they study everything about it. They read all the books and then they read some more and then they watch the podcasts and the recovery stories, and everything still happens up here.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
application does not happen. And that's what I see a lot where like progress stops, right? The aha moment, what the brain can do and cause, that can catapult someone forward big time. But then there's more to that. That's kind of the intellectual understanding is one part, but then we have to bring it into the body as a lived experience. And things like somatic tracking is one of the methods that's great for that, right? And it sounds so simple, but sometimes it's not easy to do when you're used to overthinking. Then, like, how do I actually feel into sensations in the body and be lighthearted around them, right? So it's a practice, and like everything is a practice. But knowing that there are tools that can strengthen your interoception, uh, which is the sense of like noticing what's going on inside your body, that is already empowering. And then we can work on that, because the sooner we notice slight shifts in our body, the sooner we can actually attend to the needs that that usually wants
Yeah.
to alert us to.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
then
Yeah,
we
very
can,
good.
react, and we don't have to wait for the brain to turn up the volume and shout at us with like an uptick of symptoms or new symptoms. And so that is one thing. And then understanding that things like joy, ease, just having fun, getting into a flow state, creative expression, savoring, gratitude, mindfulness, all of those things are really effective tools um, that you have in your toolbox.
Yeah.
Everybody has them in their toolbox,
Yeah.
but we don't know yet enough about it, or we don't trust
Yeah.
enough that they are powerful. They are like, oh yeah, alternative or whatever. No, there is so much research out there that play, creativity, about, using art in health. There's
Yeah.
like so much research about how it affects your immune system.
Yes.
It lowers cortisol, it increases
Yeah.
serotonin. If you do something in community, it increases oxytocin. Like,
Yes.
a lot of this has been studied, but it's not yet like mainstream.
Well, it
And
sounds
that's why I'm so
woo-woo.
passionate about it. I want to
It
make it
sounds
mainstream.
woo-woo. It sounds woo-woo, but, and then I'm gonna add to your beautiful list, of course, as we know, and this goes back to Sarno, you know, moving, get back to your exercise,
Course.
fearless movement, Charlie and
Yes.
I call it. And so part of it is to even, I say, walk around the dining room table, get up and down. The research is if I imagine myself moving,
Mhm.
I can affect my brain. My theme of the week this week is mental rehearsal, and just really using from here up to serve you. Like how can we're thinkers, we're overthinkers, we're intellectual, like brilliant people. So I'm saying, how do we channel who we are? Because we're not here to change who we are. We are here to evolve. And I like to call it breaking the habit of being ourselves and evolve to be the healthy you need to be, who you were before, because it's kind of like taking that person and integrating it with the present and moving on.
Mhm.
So part of it is to accept the reality that you may not be the same person, but you're still you. So how do we, embrace who you are and love you? Somebody didn't like that I said this one show, and I said, you have to love your body. You can't heal a body you hate, and I'm standing behind that. Like, she was very offended by that. I stand behind that. This body is not punishing you. It's protecting your brain. Is protecting you. It's an amazing brain, but it gets to be a brain when we can reprogram it and live
Yeah.
our lives. Then it gets to be a brain and put you in fight or flight when you need it. When you get a little, the car gets too close to you and back of you, you're in fight or flight, and then you come right out of it. When our brain gets hijacked, we get stuck. And I think what you're saying here is so powerful that would love to hear your opinion about this. So one of the first books I read before I went to chiropractic school was about Norman Cousins. And he wrote a book called Anatomy of an Illness. And some people are familiar with it. He was the editor of a New York magazine. And he was a lovely man. He went with his wife to Russia on a conference. And he came back and he had a horrible flu. And it was a very stressful trip in Russia, and happened to be near which is an interesting topic, because I meet lots of people with this condition who the hotel was near a huge chemical factory, like tires and rubber. So just interesting about like the stress of the environment, and then our immune system drops because we're vulnerable. He gets on the plane, he comes back, he's not feeling well. He goes in the hospital, they do a blood test. He has ankylosing spondylitis. He has some kind of high arthritic numbers. They're
Mhm.
finding his joints are getting locked. He's not moving. His SED rate is, I forget, it's up or down. He's got, some kind of arthritic reaction. His body's attacking itself. Okay. He tries to figure out why this is happening. His wife was in the same stressful trip in the same hotel next to the same chemical factory. One day he watches a funny movie and he discovers the next day when they check his SED rate that it was changed. And he makes the connection. Wait a minute. I laughed at the Three Stooges and it changed my chemicals. Now we
Mm.
know about endorphins. We know about laughing. We know about, chemicals. We know about women breastfeeding. We know about the chemicals. We understand that, but we don't put it to the test and see how powerful these chemicals are and how we can create them ourselves by joy and laughter. So he begs his doctor to let him leave the hospital because he sees the hospital as a stressful place. And he goes into a hotel room. He injects himself with vitamin C, infuses constant vitamin C, and he watches Three Stooges movies all day. He cured himself. I say it on the
Nice.
record.
Yeah.
I don't like the word cure. God cures. He healed. His body immediately created the chemicals he needed to stop the attack. And he was okay. And he wrote a book about it. And he changed a big part of the medical community because of what happened. He was accepted as a leader, even though he wasn't a doctor. And he began to show that we can go into a doctor's office and the doctor will say, "There's nothing I can do." And the person will go home and die, as opposed to, let's work this. Let's see what we can do. Let's try, this is a very different relationship. So we're talking about relationships. So that's about laughter. And I think the joy and the laughter and the play, goes hand in hand. And
Absolutely.
I'm saying it's the medicine. I'm saying it's got to be the medicine. And like, as we said on the flyer, like, is the medicine that you need. And even if you need to watch a funny movie every night, whatever it takes to help you focus. And I want you to speak a little bit more about this
Mm.
story about Norman
Mhm.
Cousins and the laughter and the changing his immune system. And what do you
Mm.
think about all that, Simone?
I'm not familiar with the book or this story, but what my thought was like maybe what his play personality type was the Joker. So for him, laughter and funny stories might have just lit up that neural network that was maybe dormant in his body, and he was in a nervous system response from the trip, and that might have counterbalanced it, and with repeated exposure to it helped him to fully recover. So that's a great story for
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
we know that our emotions and our stress levels have such a huge effect on chronic symptoms and on autoimmune symptoms, right? Um, my youngest son has Crohn's disease, which is autoimmune, and he was diagnosed as a baby, so he has had it all his life. Um, but the interesting thing is that when he experiences high levels of pain and we suspect a flare, we've done countless, emergency colonoscopies to check, and usually the response was, isn't looking bad. It's actually looking better than last time. And we were stupefied of
Wow.
how can that happen?
Wow.
And, it's just one example that stands out in my mind is one morning, he was doubled over in bed. It's with teenagers, it's always he has a 12 out of 10 pain at least and cannot walk. And so I had him stay home from school and he literally did not leave the bed and was just moaning all day. It was terrible. And that afternoon, I was in his room when he received an email from his teacher with his grade of a test that he had written um, a couple of days prior. And he got a good grade and he got up and pain was gone. So I know that even there are autoimmune, conditions.
Yeah.
A lot of times the symptom behavior is influenced by what's going on in our
Yeah.
life. So,
Yeah.
and that is the powerful approach too, right? It's we can either be very bogged down by the diagnoses we've been given. And don't get me wrong, they're like are terrible diagnoses. Like, I don't want to downplay that at all. But in many cases, there are some things we can do to influence symptom behavior, because the brain, whatever the symptom is, determines its extent. And so when we can work on calming the nervous system down and creating a felt sense of safety, that will benefit pretty much everything.
Yeah. No, it's you make a very good point, and I want to talk more about you know, Joe Dispenza, which I lean a lot into his work, and I think it, we talk about gratitude or hope. We're talking about the same chemicals that are being secreted. And so whether it's a gratitude journal, whether it's
Being
writing
in
a
nature.
love letter to your brain, which Dr. Schubiner talks a lot about, nature,
Yeah.
singing, music,
Yes,
movement. And
absolutely.
I want people to see that they have choices and that they get stuck. The fear paralyzes us. But you know what? Fear can propel you. Fear can propel you. And so, we probably say the same, something similar to our clients when they're triggered. It's, stop for a minute, take a deep breath. And what does a deep diaphragmatic breath do?
It shifts.
Activates all those chemicals. Doesn't mean you have to turn on the funny movie or Netflix right away. I'm suggesting that you have a Netflix and you watch some of these ridiculous movies. But I'm talking about number one, evidence. You're okay. You have neuroplastic symptoms. You've seen them come and go. Chronic pain is not normal. I repeat, autoimmune symptoms, chronic pain is not normal. And I have witnessed people healing cancer and MS, getting out of the bed and doing not miracles, but their body's innate ability to heal, their innate intelligence, is in recovery. And whether it's a remission or whether it's, I want people to realize that um, this is science.
Yeah.
And I'm
This is
not
the
I'm
new
not bashing
neuroscience.
doctors. I'm not
Yeah.
bashing doctors and because we need medicine and the people that get better with the medicine are not here listening. So the individuals that are in our community, I want to keep inspiring hope, the science of gratitude. I mean, gratitude, writing a gratitude journal or even being graceful, gracious, going to church, going to synagogue, going to the mosque, praying, is chemical. It's biological. It's neurological, and we all have the capability to do that. So, going back to my initial, I went the long ways. So when we get stuck, Simone, when we get stuck, because it's as we're building the habit, which takes time, repetition, repetition, repetition. But when we get stuck, how can we help our listeners, our clients, because we all get stuck. Getting stuck is part of life. Like Dan Buglio said last week, when life gets lifey, like life gets lifey. But
All the time.
so
Yeah.
tell us more about how we can get unstuck.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's important to acknowledge that there is a lot of very difficult situations going on, and the people listening and watching, they are often in a tough spot, right? And so sometimes it's not easy to have that shift, but let's hope we can make that happen. I think important is to understand that you have, like you said, you have choices. There are options. This is not a cookie cutter approach. And that can sometimes scare people also, because it's sometimes we just want somebody to tell
Yeah,
us what to do, or
yeah,
we want to replicate the journey somebody else took and they got better, and we try everything they did and it doesn't work for us, and we are frustrated, right? So that is very human and understandable, but we need to reclaim our power to find our own path. and
Beautiful.
to be willing to try out different things and not get disappointed if we tried it once and nothing changes, right? Change is not like an instant thing. Like neuroplasticity happens with repetition. When you go to the gym for the first time, you do not come back with a bicep that's like super toned, right? I mean, I wish, but you have to go back over and over. You have to start small. You have to build resistance. You have to build repetitions. And then over time you see the results. It's the same thing with this joy practice. First, you want to find out what resonates. Like your example of funny movies, that would not be me. you know, I, for me, what resonates is, engaging in something new that I am curious about. That is my medicine, has always worked for me. Whenever life has brought me down, that is the right thing for me. And I can go back to that. For other people, it's making art. It's exploring creativity in its various forms. I just read that joining a choir and singing is one
Beautiful.
of the most health supporting things
Whoa.
anybody can do. And there's research on that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that is like, there's a lot of things that are um, possible, but it's about exploring what fits you. That is the goal, because like it doesn't matter what worked for anybody else
Yeah.
if it doesn't
Yeah.
resonate with who you authentically are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you're saying also, it's asking our clients and asking ourselves to take a little risk, a safe risk, a low risk, a risk that has
Low
no
risk.
consequences.
Yeah.
Only good can happen. And sometimes, look, we talk about this sometimes about sometimes it's the best thing to do is to hire a coach, to join a group, to practice that relationship of with somebody who can hold your hand. So we're going to answer a few questions and open up the dialogue a little bit. Brian, can you bring up a question for Simone? So what if joy feels fake or forced? Does it still help the brain rewire? Great question, James.
That is a great question. I would love to know a little bit more about it. We
Yeah.
know as far as laughter is concerned, for example, that putting a fake laughter on your face, like in laughter yoga, or just in somatic tracking, putting a smile on your face, the brain cannot differentiate whether it's true or fake. So that does have the same benefits. With joy, when I read the question, that seems to me like you're engaging in something that at the moment does not bring you joy and you're not feeling joyful as you do it. And and that's just my assumption, and like because I don't know the person behind the question. And in that situation, I would say that's probably not going to change much, because we are after those tiny moments that actually where you can take a deeper breath, where you notice your shoulders relax. And that can be the beginning of joy. I think that
Beautiful.
is another really important thing. I mentioned the black or white thinking in the
Beautiful.
beginning. Um, Oftentimes people think that um, there's either the dark, misery, and like symptoms like illness, and joy, on the other hand, it's like the Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we've got to
Yeah.
have it all. And that the thing is, like when you're out of practice, you want to start really small. And like I've told that story so many times, and it's like it just shows you like how I was able to reclaim joy. And it's like I kind of like was emotionally numb, like flatline for many
Yeah.
years, and I wanted joy to come back to my life. That's why this is so near and dear to me. It was really important. I had no clue how to do it. And and I decided to think about what I like, small things I like. And I thought, oh, I like candles. And I started making it a ritual and a habit every morning when I come downstairs. First thing is I light a candle. And I don't just light the candle and walk away. I light the candle. I listen to the crackle of the wick. I watch the flame dance for a couple of
Beautiful.
seconds. And every single time, my facial muscles relax a little bit. And it's this tiny shift in the nervous system. That's the first step that we're after. And that's what with repetition, we'll build on to make more the moments longer and bigger, but that's not something to start with. So if you throw yourself into an activity that should be joyful, but just doesn't bring you joy, I think that probably is too big of a chunk, but sometimes we, have to go with other people and like engage in things. I get that. But I would suggest to think smaller and like
Good.
start smaller.
Beautiful. And I just want to give people a hug and talk about, you have an intention. And even though the intention may not, the expectation just didn't pan out, your intention was to do the best you can, was
Yes,
to create an outcome. And like I say, there's cause and effect, but you can cause your effect. You're capable of doing that. We're that powerful. And if your body got you into this protective state, it can absolutely bring you into a safety state. And Doc
absolutely.
Hanscom teaches a lot about, like, we need to lean into the safety. We need to understand the threat and do everything we can to bring safety and make that a habit. And the joy and the laughter and the gratitude and the play is so, so, so integral. I'm so excited to be talking about this. Um, Next question, Bri, from Nina. When you've been in pain for so long, joy almost feels unsafe, like the body doesn't trust it. How do we work with that?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
totally get that. That's a very normal response, right? Because your nervous system has been in this hypervigilant state. It's been scanning for danger, um, and probably overreacting to minute threats and perceiving those as dangerous. So lowering your guard, like slowing down and engaging in something playful, that can feel unsafe to your nervous system because it's not used to it. Um, so that's why we want to familiarize it with it in those small doses. And
Yeah. Excellent.
and just like with somatic tracking, when it can feel very difficult in the beginning to access that detached curiosity, just bringing curiosity to small moments and just even if it's 5 seconds
Yeah.
of curiosity and mindful exploration, that
Beautiful.
can be the beginning of shifting. For example, my joy experiment this week is pick 3 different textures. It's called the texture treasure hunt, and explore like with closed eyes for a couple of seconds and just notice what you notice. There's no specific outcome in mind, but what it does, it just brings you into the moment. Excuse me, and it allows your nervous system to engage and in a safe way because that is something that it won't feel. It doesn't read as joy
Yeah.
or play,
Yeah.
but it is like the first stepping stone toward it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Beautiful. Excellent. Um, Another question, Bri, and then we're going to talk a little bit about your course. When playfulness feels awkward or uncomfortable, does that mean we're doing it wrong, or is that part of the
yeah.
process?
No, you're not doing anything wrong. That's totally normal. That's like how a healthy, protective brain would normally behave. Because if you've not been playing, if you've not been, creating and just like exploring flow states and things like that, which, when you're in chronic pain or experiencing other chronic symptoms, I mean, who can blame you, right? Your nervous system is wired this way at the moment. And
Yeah.
so, totally normal. Same answer as to the previous question, like starting small, expecting it to feel awkward at first, and keeping going. It's just like it's not going to the gym, like doing one workout, thinking, "Oh, I'm so sore. I'm never going to go back again." Right? That's kind of like my musculature, like my musculoskeletal system will be like, "No, we're not used to that. We don't like that." And it's the same thing with the brain. It won't like it at first, but it will love it soon.
Yeah. So I think that equals AKA Well, you're uncomfortable, but you need to come out of your comfort zone and create a new comfort zone by being a little uncomfortable, and the uncomfortable is safe. There's no danger in being uncomfortable, and it's a gentle push and a gentle, to look back and say, "Wow, look what I did." And people that come into our lives, they're so accomplished. They've been through so much. They're so strong and sturdy, and they don't realize, like, what is a scar? A scar is a sign. You've over, never forget
Yeah.
that. So I think it's important for our community. So there's two things I want to say. First of all, we're not going to answer any more questions right now, but this recording will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, and there'll be a polished version tomorrow with information about Simone and the course that she has. We're going to advertise it on the Facebook page because it sounds really, really amazing and wonderful and available for our community. I have lots of information and articles from Dr. David Hanscom, not only on his website, Back in Control, but I collect a lot of his things, and there's a number of articles, one about the science of optimism, because we haven't even talked about like the narrative of speaking, even if you like fake it till you make it, which I believe in this law of attraction. I've not even believe in, I've seen it work. So there's a lot of articles about play and joy that I can send you. So reach out to me on the YouTube question and answer, or on my messenger. Because we want to give you the information and resources so you can apply it and implement it. We're not here to fill your head with more information. We're here to teach you,
How to
tools and
apply it.
methods to
How to
apply and
apply it.
implement.
That is like the
Yeah,
teaching is important, but then what you do with it, what you take from it
yeah,
and bring it into your
yeah,
everyday, that's what counts. And that's
yeah.
what brings the change in your life.
Beautiful. And if you're feeling uncomfortable doing this, it means you're doing it right. Lean into the resistance. Reach into the resistance. Resistance is okay. It's not, it means like, understand your own resistance. Like, what we talk about is let's be certain that with uncertainty, let's trust that uncertainty is a bridge.
And uncertainty is just a part of life, right? It's like we are fighting uncertainty so much. We want to know. We want to control symptom. We want to control our situation. That's understandable. And sometimes just checking, monitoring, that gives us this illusion of control, right? So very understandable. But I wanted to say something about like that power that we have in terms of like leaning into the uncomfortable. When we start something new, pretty much any change will cause some anxiety in us, right? And like how I reframed that for myself many years ago when I moved from Germany to the US, it was like instead of having it to be daunting, I decided to make it an adventure. And so just calling difficult things that are new an adventure, it shifts something. At least it did for me. So give it a try. Um,
Excellent
because it like
advice.
opens possibilities, and it doesn't mean it needs to be perfect and there won't be challenges, but it has a little bit of trust in ourselves that whatever is going to happen, that we can deal with it because we've dealt with things before.
I am so thrilled that we all got a dose of Simone today. And I think
Thank you.
this broadcast has enormous insights and information to put in our pocket and to apply. And so tell us a little bit about this course that you're starting, because this is a new chapter in your
Very new,
neuroplastic work.
yes. We launched last Wednesday, so a week from today. And it's not a course, actually, so I want to correct
Okay,
you on that. It's a community. It's called
great,
MindBodyJoy. It's an online community
beautiful.
where we have a community rhythm. We have one monthly theme in this month of October. That's the joy of noticing. And then we have one weekly joy experiment. Every Monday, we start with one joy experiment that we then practice every week and that we kind of share about and, like post about, and like what's the resistance, what was hard, what was an amazing, like realization. Sorry, like that word
Uh-huh.
escaped me for a second. For example, with the clouds that I mentioned earlier, the complement a cloud. Like now, after because I designed it a couple of weeks ago. Since I designed the joy experiment, I started looking up in the sky, and now I'm like when I go outside, I'm looking, and it brings me joy. I'm like when I see a funny cloud, I'm like, oh, that's a nice one, you know. Anyways, so that's
I love
the
it.
weekly joy
Yeah.
experiments, and then we do have some weekly live sessions, and they always happen Tuesdays or Wednesdays at noon Pacific time. And we have art exploration for nervous system regulation with
Love it.
Brenda Lux Johnson, an amazing artist. She does flow drawing, so it's not creating masterpieces, it's actually using pens and repetition and
Beautiful.
shapes, um, and play with it and see how that feels in your body, and just experimenting with joy. We have an hour of mixed laughter yoga and yoga nidra. So we'll have a short
Excellent.
part that is the laughter because there's been studies on the health benefits of this fake, weird laughter that can feel very
Yeah.
odd, but
Yeah.
it actually shifts the nervous system. And then we follow that up with like this deep restorative non-sleep deep rest. We have another one that is like an award-winning connection game. So people in the community actually get to know each other because I didn't want to create an online space where people hang out all the time and just, spend time in front of their computer. I want this to be like a place where like they get doses of
Oh,
inspiration lives. And yeah, and we have a 2-week free trial for everyone. So um, I just want people to like feel safe enough to try it and to like see if that's something that they would want to, engage in because it needs to fit, right? And so I invite everybody to check it out.
so anyway, that's my producer said he doesn't really know what's going on. It might be her internet, but what a way to end it. I mean, really, I think Simone is just brilliant and she's onto something really, really wonderful for all of our communities. So I'm going to say good night from my heart and home to yours. Leave your questions. I'll send them to Simone. And we're just sending our blessings again. And we'll see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Blessings.